Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be talking about specifically other people's opinions and how to properly assess those opinions, because it's very often the case that a lot of people are going to tell you specifically what their stance is on not only a particular topic, which is fine. People disagree on topics all the time, whether it's political, social, economical, etc. But the most important topic really is the topic of your life. So effectively, receiving advice about particular topics as far as like decisions that you should make about that particular thing, whatever that is that you're going through, whether it's a relationship or whether it's any type of decision of any kind, and the way you think about that decision. So, a couple of key points to consider. Number one, this person that is giving you the advice or their opinions, what does their life look like in that specific area? It's not their life in general. Because listen, you may have a friend who's in a fantastic relationship, long-term relationship, maybe wife and kids, whatever. And they're only making whatever, 50, $60,000 a year, dual income family, but he knows how to, treat his wife, how to establish a relationship, how to have a family. So if you want to take a relationship advice, you want to take it from that guy or that person over the person who is very wealthy but can't maintain any stable relationships, and vice versa. Maybe you want to take some advice from the guy who's making a lot of money or from the girl who's making a lot of money about money, as opposed to the guy who's not making any, but it looks like he's got his life together, right? And he's very peace and he's very calm and he's got kids and he does things on the weekend. He does the barbecues, but like average income, he still has to like pay his way to get by and saving up for retirement and do that traditional pathway. Now, even though he may be more integrated, if you're looking to attain a specific goal that's outside of the realm of what this person has achieved in any domain, you want to basically still listen. You're still listening, of course, but not necessarily being wide open like a sponge where you're just going to take everything in and then wring it out, right? So, and again, it doesn't mean that you have to disagree with people either. It's very often the case too that when other people give you their opinions or they have different perspectives that will argue with them about whatever, it's not really that important. So don't worry about it. I mean, sometimes it's good to argue for the sake of learning how to construct valid and sound arguments and statements regarding topics that have nothing to do with your life, right? Which means sometimes it's good, like if you have a position economically or politically, that you want to be able to receive other people's information, but you don't want to just stop there and say, yeah, 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 okay, because you may want to open your mind and see, okay, maybe I'm not seeing things from a very holistic perspective. Maybe there's a different way to see things. So if you take your best arguments and you put them forward and somebody else has, in a manner of speaking, better arguments that are putting you in a position where you're doubting your current position, then don't take that doubt trivially. Don't assume that it's like trivial. Assume that this person has addressed something that is hitting you in an area that's making you uncomfortable for whatever reason. And maybe it's an area to consider as far as changing your stance or at least doing more research or coming up with better arguments, right? Now, I'm not saying don't be open minded. I'm saying the exact opposite. I'm saying be open minded. That's why you should have these conversations, right? But don't ever defend yourself, right? So if somebody's telling you specifically about something that you should do with your life, you don't want to get into explanation mode. I mean, you can do it in one sentence. You could say, yeah, well, the reason I'm doing that is for XYZ reason, and that's fine. But keep one thing in mind: when other people are giving you their opinions, they make that assessment first. Number one, where are they coming from? What does their life look like in that department, right? When we're talking about personal conversations. And number two, how do I think about things in such a way where I'm not deluding myself, where I'm not in my own echo chamber? So what that actually means practically is that not only do you have to spend a lot of time thinking about and processing your decisions and your life in general, you also have to do things to you have to do things to basically test your own thoughts, test your own. They're not really beliefs, but you have to test the things that you believe, right? So, for example, if you're going through a hard time with somebody and you notice, and this person is very, very close to you, let's say they're a family member, and you're realizing by doing what you're doing, whatever that is, the relationship is somehow getting better. Now, there's been a lot of darkness involved in the relationship, a lot of betrayal, etc. But you feel a little bit more comfortable trusting this person, or just knowing that they could betray you, but you're okay with that. You're just okay with the relationship as it is, as an example. You may have somebody come around and tell you you should leave that relationship, or you should ignore this person, or they're a bad person. And you can just kind of let them talk. You don't have to get angry or defensive. But the point here is that as long as what you're doing is generating some kind of positive momentum, so it's leading you somewhere that you want to go, you're feeling better about those decisions, you feel better about the way you are and how you're thinking, then don't be concerned about defending that position or following anybody else's advice, right? So, because again, at the end of the day, it's your life, and you're going to have to suffer the consequences or reap the benefits of the decisions that you make, not the other person. So you can listen to somebody and take their advice, but if it's something that wasn't fully aligned with you and it didn't actually make sense, and you weren't resonating at that level, and you weren't on the exact same wavelength, and you're like, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. If you're not there and you follow their advice, then you're always going to have an out. You're always going to be able to you're always going to be blaming. You're going to either blame this other person for like telling you what to do, but and then also blaming yourself for actually doing it. So it's like you're going to have something built up inside you that you don't want that there. So the best thing that you can do is, and listen, somebody actually may be right, but you still have to think about it very deeply and find out if it aligns with you on multiple levels before you make any decision, whether it's in alignment with their advice or something completely different. And if it is, hooray, you can, send them a text or send them a call and say, hey, listen, like I was thinking about what you said, and I did a lot of, reflecting. I did some, you know, I I did XYZ, and I noticed that was, I feel like that was the right decision. Like, for example, when I was thinking about breaking up with my ex, I spoke to a friend of mine, and he was basically telling me the same thing from his position. And then he said at some point after like maybe like two conversations, he's like, dude, you know what? Don't do it, because I don't want you to like blame me for whatever. I'm like, dude, you don't have to worry about that. I'm a full grown man. I take responsibility for my decisions. That's what I told him. I'm like, listen, even if, first of all, if I did it just because you told me, I'm weak. But even like if I did it because that's what I was feeling, and you told me that that's what you think I should do, well, it doesn't really matter, because that's what I believed anyway. But regardless, don't think that it's your fault, because again, the responsibility of that decision is the responsibility of me making that decision and receiving all of the benefits or drawbacks. That's on me. That's not on you. But he was wise enough to say, hey, listen, like don't do this just because I'm telling you to do it. you know but I was in alignment with that opinion anyway, so I just did it. And I was like, bro, thanks for your support. That was it. Not like a big conversation had to be had about it. And sometimes, here's another thing. Sometimes um, you are not sure in your decision, right? If you're unsure, it's one thing if you have like absolute certainty. And when I say certainty, I mean like peaceful certainty, not like aggressive certainty, because aggressive certainty is typically like a defensive stance, right? You're fighting against something and you want to compensate by being over aggressive so you don't have to really address the vulnerability that's inside, right? But if you're solid as a rock and you make a decision and you're peaceful about that decision and you're absolutely certain, then nothing can really shake you. So you can hear other people's opinions. However, if you're either unsure or you're super aggressive with your stance and your opinions, then maybe you should listen to somebody else, because it's a sign that there's something there that you're not addressing. Either it's weak because it's not properly formulated, you don't know how to think about the problem, or you don't know exactly, what to do and what the consequences would be, and you need somebody to help you think things through, or you're externalizing everything in an aggressive manner just so you don't have to look at the weak points of your own argument, right? So those are typically the two positions where you should be open to receiving other people's input if it's a personal decision that you have to make for your life. Social things, like I said, it's a little bit of a different story. It's really more of like on a technical level as far as like coming up with sound, valid arguments, but also something that's in line with your worldview, as an example. But that's like a different conversation for a different time, and that's this channel is not really about that. It's not really about that in general. But I hope that really was helpful in you determining specifically how to regard other people's opinions about, your position. So those are the few tools that you can use. So number one, look at the person's life in that particular area where they're giving you advice, and find out if it's something that you would want to emulate, or it's something that you aspire to or not. And if not, then be careful. Take it with a grain of salt. Put a lot of attention and awareness around that fact. Number two is whatever opinions or advice that you're receiving, find out beforehand as you're talking about this what your position is. And typically there's three positions, right? There's peaceful, grounded, kind of absolute certainty. And it doesn't mean that just because you receive some information you might not change it. And that's fine, because we're dynamic, flexible human beings. It doesn't mean like if you have a map and you decide that you want to take a specific route and you find out there's enemies on that route, you're not going to take the same route just because you had absolute peaceful certainty that that was the route, right? When you got more information, you got intel that there's an enemy up ahead, so you have to take a different route. So just be ready to make decisions, but make sure that those decisions are based off of what you've internally processed, as opposed to just around the reasons that somebody else has given you for making that decision. The second scenario, so the first scenario is you just being very confident in the decision that you made, whether it's leaving somebody or starting something new or making some kind of decision or sacrifice or taking a risk, etc. Second would be if you're just feeling weak and you're like, I don't really know, then listen, but listen with not only open ears but open eyes, metaphorically speaking. So you want to have a lot of awareness, a lot of attention around this, what the other person is saying or what other people are saying, so that way you can properly process things. So don't be impulsive with the decisions that you're going to be making. Really have to think about it. Take your time, think about it, write about it, speak about it, right? Meditate, pray about it. You got to do different things to make sure that when you come to the point where you're going to make a decision, you have that equanimity, you have that peace, you have that certainty, at least in the moment of making the decision. Sometimes it doesn't work out immediately the way you wanted, like the story that I mentioned, when I was like absolutely sure, absolutely peaceful that I was gonna make this decision as far as leaving my 9 to 5, and I went through a period of living in a cheap motel, being broke, homeless, living in my car, and then just massive ascension, multiple 6 figures per year, right? So, and that was all in less than 2 years. So this is what I mean. It's just actually technically less than a year and a half. So this is what I mean. It's really, you don't know what's on the other side until you make that decision. So make sure that when you make any decision, that you do have that grounded certainty, that confidence in the decision that you're making, that it's coming from your core and not from just what other people are saying. And typically you're going to know that because you're not going to have any voices in your head. You're not going to have you're not going to be like, oh, this person said this and this person said that, and they're right about this. All that dialogue is going to dissipate once you get to the point of knowing what decision it is that you need to make. And sometimes you're not going to know for sure, right? And you're going to be at a point in time where you have to make a decision. You can't delay it anymore. And so you want to make the best possible move, right? Which means that it may not be the ideal decision, but it's the best possible decision in that scenario. So that's the second scenario, as far as like you feeling weak and just kind of weak in your decision, right? Weak in the stance that you have about whatever decision you want to make or whatever changes that you might need to make in your life. And the third would be being just very aggressive and very like you're projecting a lot of energy towards defending your position and making sure that nobody messes with you or messes with what you're thinking. If you have that position, it's very likely that either you were suppressed, right, or you're feeling insecure, or you want to establish yourself individually from other people. But just keep an open mind, because what you're doing, it may be a defense mechanism for protecting whatever vulnerability that you have, because that may not be the best option. Conversely, it may be the best option, and you're doing that just because of the fact that you feel like you were being suppressed, or you were being kind of influenced by too many people, and now you just want to establish your own path and go your own way. And that's very admirable as well. So keep that in mind. And listen, when you have that decision and you make the decision, and even if it's wrong, take responsibility. You probably will take responsibility for it, but just I'm reminding you to take responsibility for it, and know that, hey, nobody told you what to do. You didn't listen to anybody. You didn't just do something only because somebody said. You did it because you truly thought that was the best option. And then you can reassess, right? You make a mistake or it doesn't turn out well, and then you look at the scenario, you find out where you need improvements, you find out where you made mistakes, you make those improvements, you correct those mistakes, and that way you don't have to make them moving forward. Just like the video record about life being a test, right? Either you pass a test and hooray, you go on to the next class, or you fail a test, you find out exactly where you failed, and then you correct those errors. So you can write a test, pass it, and then move on, right? So hope that was helpful as far as, people's personal opinions and decision making in the face of conversations, right? When you have conversations with other people, and how to like think through those types of scenarios. So hope that was helpful, and I'm going to leave it there. And if you have any questions, if you have any comments, drop it in the comments. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel. You could sign up for my newsletter as well. And until next time, I will see you soon.